General Prepware, Regulations, Maintenance Forms, Records, and Publications. Check thrust bearings for tightness on new or newly overhauled engines at the first 50-hour inspection following installation. Subsequent inspections on thrust bearing nuts will be made at each third 50-hour inspection. From the above statement, at what intervals should you check the thrust bearing nut for tightness? 150 hours. Refer to Figure 62. The dash 100 and the title block, Area 1, is applicable to which doubler part numbers? Dash 101. The replacement of fabric on fabric covered parts such as wings, fuselages, stabilizers, or control surfaces is considered to be a major repair even though no other alteration or repair is performed. Which statement is true regarding the requirements for maintenance record format? Any format that provides record continuity and includes the required information may be used. What information is generally contained in aircraft specifications or type certificate data sheets? Control surface movements. For aircraft operated under Part 91, which of the following records must be retained for at least 1 year or until the work is repeated or superseded? After satisfactorily completing inspections. For aircraft operated under Part 91, which of the following records must be retained for at least 1 year or until the work is repeated or superseded? Records of maintenance, alterations, preventative maintenance, 100-hour, annual, and progressive inspections. Number 1. The Federal Aviation Regulations require approval after compliance with the data of a supplemental type certificate. Number 2. An installation of an item manufactured in accordance with the Technical Standard Order System requires no further approval for installation in a particular aircraft. Regarding the above statements, only number 1 is true. Which of the following includes all the regulatory definitions of maintenance? Overhaul, repair, parts replacement, inspection, and preservation. Which maintenance action is an airframe major repair? The repair of portions of skin sheets by making additional seams. After making a certain repair to an aircraft engine that is to be returned to service, an FAA Form 337 is prepared. How many copies are required and what is the disposition of the completed forms? 2. 1 copy for the aircraft owner and 1 copy. For aircraft operated under Part 91, which of the following records must be retained and transferred with the aircraft when it is sold? Aviation maintenance alerts, formerly general aviation airworthiness alerts, provide information about aircraft problems and suggested corrective actions. A person working under the supervision of a certificated mechanic with an airframe and power plant rating is not authorized to perform a 100-hour inspection. 14 CFR Part 65, Subpart D, contains regulations regarding the certification of mechanics. Which is an appliance major repair? Overhaul of a hydraulic pressure pump. Certificated mechanics with a power plant rating may perform 100-hour inspections required by the Federal Aviation Regulations on power plants, propellers, or any components thereof, and may release the same to service. What is the means by which the FAA notifies aircraft owners and other interested persons of unsafe conditions and prescribes the condition under which the product may continue to be operated? Airworthiness directives. How long does the holder of a certificate issued under Part 65 have to notify the FAA after any change in permanent mailing address? 30 days. Why is a mechanic applicant issued a temporary certificate after successful completion of the required tests? To allow for review of their application and supplementary documents. Under the Federal Aviation Regulations, an aviation maintenance technician is required to perform maintenance on an aircraft so that it is at least equal to its original or properly altered condition. A complete detailed inspection and adjustment of the valve mechanism will be made at the first 25 hours after the engine has been placed in service. Subsequential inspections of the valve mechanism will be made each second 50-hour period. From the above statement, at what intervals will valve mechanism inspections be performed? 100 hours. Which aircraft record entry is the best description of the replacement of several damaged Healy coils in a casting? 8 quarter-20-inch standard Healy coils were replaced. The damaged inserts were extracted, the tapped holes gauged, then new inserts installed, and tangs removed. Certificated mechanics, under their general certificate privileges, may perform 100-hour inspection of instruments. Which of the following statements is true for a certificated and appropriately rated mechanic regarding repairs and alterations? He or she may perform an aircraft major repair or major alteration, but cannot approve the work for return to service. Refer to Figure 62, 62A, and 62B as necessary. Using only the information given, when bend allowance, setback, etc. have been calculated, which doubler is it possible to construct and install? -101. When an aircraft is sold domestically, the airworthiness certificate is transferred with the aircraft at the time of sale. 14 CFR Part 65 contains regulations regarding the certification of airmen other than flight crew members. A certificated mechanic shall not exercise the privileges of the certificate and rating unless, within the preceding 24 months, the administrator has found that the certificate holder is able to do the work or the certificate holder has served as a mechanic under the certificate and rating for at least 6 months. Specifications pertaining to an aircraft model manufactured under a type certificate, of which less than 50 are shown on the FAA Aircraft Registry, can be found in the action required by an AD may take what form? Number 1, inspection. Number 2, parts replacement. Number 3, design modification. Number 4, change in operating procedures. Number 5, overall change in the content, form, and disposition of aircraft maintenance records. Answer 1, 2, 3, and/or 4. What is the status of data used as a basis for approving major repairs or alterations for return to service? Data must be FAA approved prior to its use for that purpose. What does the acronym TSO mean regarding a type-certificated aircraft part, material, component, and/or process? Technical standard order. Number 1. Certificated mechanics with an airframe rating may perform a minor repair to an airspeed indicator provided they have the necessary equipment available. Number 2. Certificated mechanics with the power plant rating may perform a major repair to a propeller provided they have the necessary equipment available. Regarding the above statements, neither number 1 nor 2 is true. When a discrepancy list is provided to an aircraft owner or operator after an inspection, it says in effect that, except for these discrepancies, the item inspected is airworthy. The issuance of an airworthiness certificate is governed by 14 CFR Part 21. Which of these publications contains standards for protrusion of bolts, studs, and screws through self-locking nuts? AC 43.13-1B. When approving for return to service after maintenance or alteration, the approving person must enter in the maintenance record of the aircraft a description or reference to acceptable data of work performed, date of completion, the name of the person performing the work if someone else, signature, certificate number, and kind of certificate held. When is a mechanic responsible for checking AD compliance? When performing an inspection required under Part 91, 125, or 135. A certificated mechanic without an inspection authorization who signs the appropriate block on FAA Form 337 is doing what? Certifying that the work was done in accordance with the requirements of 14 CFR Part 43. An aircraft type certificate data sheet contains location of the datum. Which of the following is an instance when a special flight permit may not be issued? Flying passengers on a scheduled operation. What is the maximum penalty for cheating or other unauthorized conduct when taking an FAA mechanic test? Inability to receive any certificate or rating for 1 year and suspension or revocation of any certificate held. The replacement of a damaged engine mount with a new identical engine mount purchased from the aircraft manufacturer is considered a minor repair. Which maintenance record entry best describes the action taken for a control cable showing approximately 20% wear on several of the individual outer wires at a fair lead? Wear within acceptable limits. Repair not necessary. Where should you find this entry? Removed right wing from aircraft and removed skin from outer 6 feet. Repaired buckled spar 49 inches from tip in accordance with Figure 8 in the manufacturer's structural repair number 28-1. FAA Form 337. For aircraft operated under Part 91, what difference is there, if any, between the record entry requirements for maintenance, such as repair or alteration, and the record entry requirements for inspections, beyond the description of the work performed and the type and extent of inspection? Aircraft total time is required to be included only in the inspection entry. Where is the record of compliance with airworthiness directives or manufacturer's service bulletins normally indicated? Aircraft maintenance records. What is classified as a major repair? The splicing of skin sheets. Which regulation provides information regarding instrument range markings for an airplane certificated in the normal category? 14 CFR Part 23. What part of the Federal Aviation Regulations prescribes the requirements for issuing mechanic certificates and associated ratings with the general operating rules for the holders of these certificates and ratings? 14 CFR Part 65. A technical standard order, TSO, is issued by whom? The administrator. An FAA Form 337 is used to record and document major repairs and major alterations. An airworthiness directive requires that a propeller be altered. Certificated mechanics could perform and approve the work for return to service if it is a minor alteration. A person installing a product, part, or appliance on a type certificated product must make certain that the item's records document the product, part, or material meets FAA airworthiness standards. How long are AD compliance records required to be kept? They shall be retained and then transferred with the aircraft when it is sold. If more space is needed for a work description entered on FAA Form 337, what information should be included on the attached sheets in addition to the rest of the work description? Aircraft nationality and registration mark and the date the work was accomplished. An aircraft mechanic is privileged to perform major alterations on U.S. certificated aircraft. However, the work must be done in accordance with FAA-approved technical data before the aircraft can be returned to service, which is not approved data. AC 43.13-2A. What does the Type Certificate Data Sheet Designation Code 2PCSM mean? Two-place, number of seats, closed, C monoplane. Refer to Figure 62, 62A, and 62B as necessary. How many parts will need to be fabricated by the mechanic in the construction and installation of one doubler? Answer: 3. What regulations are covered by 14 CFR Part 1? Definitions and abbreviations. Type certificate data sheets are issued for which of the following products? Aircraft, engines, and propellers. Number 1. Propellers are not included in the airworthiness directive system. Number 2. A certificated power plant mechanic may make a minor repair on an aluminum propeller and approve for return to service. Regarding the above statements, only number 2 is true. Airworthiness directives are issued primarily to correct an unsafe condition. Placards required on an aircraft are specified in aircraft specifications or type certificate data sheets. Which of the following instrument discrepancies could be corrected by an aviation mechanic? Red line missing, mounting screws loose, case paint chipped, or leaking at line B nut. Number 1. A supplemental type certificate, STC, may be issued to more than one applicant for the same design change, providing each applicant shows compliance with the applicable airworthiness requirement. Number 2. An installation of an item manufactured in accordance with the Technical Standard Order, TSO, system requires no further approval for installation in a particular aircraft. Regarding the above statements, only number 1 is true. Who is responsible for determining that materials used in aircraft maintenance and repair are of the proper type and conform to the appropriate standards? The installing person or agency. What is the maintenance recording responsibility of the person who complies with an airworthiness directive? Make an entry in the maintenance record of that equipment. Number 1. Manufacturer's data and FAA publications such as airworthiness directives, type certificate data sheets, and advisory circulars are all approved data. Number 2. FAA publications such as technical standard orders, airworthiness directives, type certificate data sheets, and aircraft specifications and supplemental type certificates are all approved data. Regarding the above statements, only number 2 is true. When may an otherwise qualified mechanic who does not read, write, speak, or understand the English language be eligible to apply for a mechanic's certificate? When employed outside the United States by a U.S. air carrier. A certificated mechanic with a power plant rating may perform the 100-hour inspection required by the Federal Aviation Regulations on a power plant or any component thereof and approve and return the same to service. A repair, as performed on an airframe, shall mean the restoration of an airframe to a condition for safe operation after damage or deterioration. Which regulation provides the airworthiness standards for an airplane certificated in the normal category? 14 CFR Part 23. When work is performed on an aircraft that necessitates the use of FAA Form 337, who should prepare the form? The person who performs or supervises the work. The following words are an example of what kind of statement in an AD. Required within the next 25 hours time in service after the effective date of this AD, unless already accomplished. Answer: compliance. If work performed on an aircraft has been done satisfactorily, the signature of an authorized person on the maintenance records for maintenance or alterations performed constitutes approval for return to service only for the work performed. Technical information about older aircraft models, of which no more than 50 remain in service, can be found in the aircraft list. An aircraft has a total time in service of 468 hours. The airworthiness directive given was initially complied with at 454 hours in service. How many additional hours in service may be accumulated before the airworthiness directive must again be complied with? The following is the compliance portion of an airworthiness directive. Compliance required as indicated unless already accomplished. 1. Aircraft with less than 500 hours total time in service. Inspect in accordance with instructions below at 500 hours total time or within the next 50 hours time in service after the effective date of this AD, and repeat after each subsequent 200 hours in service. 2. Aircraft with 500 hours through 1,000 hours total time in service. Inspect in accordance with instructions below within the next 50 hours time in service after the effective date of this AD, and repeat after each subsequent 200 hours in service. Number 3. Aircraft with more than 1,000 hours times in service. Inspect in accordance with instructions below within the next 25 hours times in service after the effective date of this AD, and repeat after each subsequent 200 hours in service. Answer: 186. Where are technical descriptions of certificated propellers found? Propeller type certificate data sheets. Refer to Figure 62, 62A, and 62B as necessary. Which doublers require heat treatment before installation? Answer: -102. The Air Transport Association of America, ATA, Specification Number 100, Number 1, establishes a standard for the presentation of technical data in maintenance manuals. Number 2, divides the aircraft into numbered systems and subsystems in order to simplify locating maintenance instructions. Regarding the above statements, both number 1 and number 2 are true. Instrument repairs may be performed by an FAA-approved instrument repair station. Which of the following are sometimes used as authorization to deviate from an aircraft's original type design? FAA Form 337, Supplemental Type Certificate, and Airworthiness Directive. Suitability for use of a specific propeller with a particular engine-airplane combination can be determined by reference to what informational source? Aircraft Specifications or Aircraft Type Certificate Data Sheet. The following is a table of airspeed limits as given in an FAA-issued aircraft specification. Normal operating speed 260 knots. Never exceed speed 293 knots. Maximum landing gear operation speed 174 knots. Maximum flap extended speed 139 knots. The high end of the white arc on the airspeed instrument would be at 139 knots. The replacement of a damaged vertical stabilizer with a new identical stabilizer purchased from the aircraft manufacturer is considered a minor repair. Which statements is true regarding the use of FAA Form 337? FAA Form 337 is not authorized for use with other than U.S. registered aircraft. What is ATA I-Spec 2200? Standardized electronic documentation for aircraft models. Primary responsibility for compliance with airworthiness directives lies with the aircraft owner or operator. In order to reconstruct lost or destroyed aircraft maintenance records, what is necessary to establish? Total time in service of the airframe. Which aircraft record entry best describes a repair of a dent in a tubular steel structure dented at a cluster? Welded a reinforcing plate over the dented area. Which maintenance record entry best describes the action taken for a .125-inch deep dent in a straight section of a half-inch aluminum alloy tubing? Dented section removed and replaced with identical new tubing flared to 37 degrees. Who is responsible for upkeep of the required maintenance records for an aircraft? The aircraft owner. Under Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, what is the maximum penalty for falsification, alteration, or fraudulent reproduction of certificates, logbooks, reports, and records? Suspension or revocation of any certificate held. How long is a mechanic certificate with airframe and/or power plant ratings valid? Until voluntarily surrendered, permanently revoked, or temporarily suspended. FAA certificated mechanics may approve for return to service a minor alteration they have performed appropriate to the ratings they hold. What is the maximum duration of a temporary airman certificate? 120 days,